Good evening, everyone. This is Mamta Sharma from iChart Support Foundation. And today we are here with our 21st episode in a 15 episode series of True Talks for Therapists, an exclusive live masterclass for mental health professionals. We have to answer our questions with us Nitin Shah, founder and director, iChart and iChart Support Foundation. Welcome, Nitin.
Thank you, Mamta, once again. How are you?
I'm good. And before we begin today, I would once again like to introduce iCharge and what we do to you. It's been a long journey. We work in the field of mental health. Nitin has been our founder. Misbah Shah is also one of our directors, and all of us work together in the field of mental health, helping people, especially helping mental health professionals and coaches develop advanced coaching and therapeutic skills. Over a period of 8 years, we have trained hundreds, over thousand. What, Nitin? What's the number? Do we have a
Around 1,000. Coaches
perfect?
and therapists included.
Yes. So that number of people in developing advanced coaching skills and advanced therapeutic skills. Our non-profit iChar Support Foundation helps people through our non-profit initiatives. For example, during the time of the pandemic, there are several support groups running. There is one for helping people cope with anxiety during this period. There is another one for the LGBTQ community. There's an on-call helpline for people who want to call in and want to talk to psychologists and trained therapists. Uh, Apart from this, we conduct a number of initiatives in terms of workshops for schools, colleges, campuses, various institutions, as well as corporate organizations. So that's about us. And so we are here at the 21st episode. Before we begin, I would like to once again remind everyone to start liking, commenting, sharing on your profile so that we can reach out to more people, more mental health practitioners. And you can also start a watch party on your profiles so that people can, watch this discussion while we are going live. And yes, so beginning our 21st episode on mindfulness today, right, Nitin?
Yes.
Perfect. So, what is mindfulness? Oh, by the way, this is our fourth bonus episode. So, I would like to, it's a great moment. We are grateful to everybody who has been on this journey with us. The kind of questions you ask and perspectives that you share also helps us, understand how we can deliver what we are trying to deliver, make it more valuable, and help it reach more and more people. Right, Nitin?
Yes. In fact, it, while I know we have been organizing the webinars and we have been conducting it, believe me, it's as much a learning experience for us as we hope it has been for you.
Yeah.
And again, I would really like to thank all of you for being there for this entire series.
Perfect. So, and once again, I always forget to say hello, good evening to everyone who is with us right now on the live.
So, hello
And while,
everyone, good evening.
yeah, please.
So that's what I was saying. That hello everyone, good evening. It's a good idea for us to finally be able to say that on the 21st episode.
Yeah. It's just that we are trying to pack so much into each episode that, we tend to just dive right into the subject or the discussion for the day.
Okay. So just before Mamta starts asking me question for what we are doing today, please feel free to post your questions, your comments. I know a lot of you had asked this for Flip. If we have the time today, I would surely cover it. If we don't, and if you would really like us to do that episode, then just comment in the comment box letting us know what are the specific topics that you would like us to cover in an additional episode. Uh, I would, if there are few topics, then I would schedule something for tomorrow. But that will be then the last one. So please ask all the comments and all the topics that you want us to clarify in the comments, so that we can prepare for it and we can cover all of them tomorrow in the in the last episode.
Perfect. So, Nitin,
So Mamta, you were asking me questions. Yes.
yeah, so I was saying, What is mindfulness? There's so much buzz around this word these days. Everyone is talking about being mindful, how it's so important for us to be mindful. So, what is mindfulness?
So, Mamta, actually, most of us already understand what mindfulness is because, as you said, this is like a buzzword that's going around us right now. But to be true, it's not something that started today. Mindfulness as a concept has been there for ages and for years, right?
Hmm.
Actually, yeah, for a long, long time. And in some form or the other, through meditations or through other processes, people have accounted and suggested that this is a good process to keep in mind. Now, to come to your question and just to probably answer it, understanding it is the ability to completely focus
Hmm.
uh, the mind on the present moment, right?
Right.
Uh, on what is happening now rather than what was or what we wanted it to be. So, if I were to give you an example, so while all of you are watching this video and we are talking about the concept of mindfulness, um, you have the screen in front of you, you're listening to my voice. All of that is a part of what's happening in the present, right? So, if you're completely focused on that, then that's being mindful. But if you're thinking about what happened in the last episode, oh, this is the last episode, what will we do tomorrow onwards, or uh, are there questions that I want to ask Nitin that he can answer for tomorrow's episode? So all of that is not being in the present. Then your mind is obviously flickering here and there, and it's not being where it is supposed to be, which is here in the now.
Right. So, that's like being in the now, being in the present, right?
Uh, so yes, being in the present is a part of mindfulness, but mindfulness is more than that. So let's look at it this way. Let's say you're sitting and planning for the future,
Hmm.
right? Now, while you're planning for the future, you're not in the now, right? You are planning for the future.
Correct.
Yet, while you're planning for the future, you can completely be mindful about what you're planning about the future. So, your focus is completely on what you're doing.
Right.
When you're thinking about the future, you're completely focused on that. Then, what's happening in the kitchen, or whether you will be able to do it or not, or whether people will laugh at you, all of those are not the questions that are coming in your head because you're completely focused on the task at hand, which is to plan for the future. I hope
Okay.
that kind of creates a distinction between being in the
Yes.
present moment only and mindfulness, because mindfulness is a broader idea compared to just being in the now.
Right, right. Because they're generally used interchangeably, and it seems that you should not even be thinking about your future. So that was a important distinction to make, I think.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Some comments here. Uh, Someone's asking for cord cutting. Supriya saying 100% learning experience. Thank you. Very excited. All right. Could you do a few mock counseling sessions using the eclectic method? That would be great, says Supriya.
Mock counseling sessions. Well, we had not thought of it that way. I think we did the fast phobia cure spontaneously on the episode. Let me see if
Yes.
we can organize for something. The only thing is because we run processes, to run processes on a mock basis can actually be a bit tricky. So let me see if we can think of certain problems for which we can do the sessions where the problems are actually there. I don't want to run a process with someone who doesn't have a problem just for the sake of showing it because then it has its own implications. But
Correct.
if there are, then we probably would figure out something.
Perfect. Perfect. So,
Probably an
moving.
idea for next series.
Okay. Okay. So, uh, yes. So, I would once again tell remind everybody to keep sharing whatever ideas you have. You never know what you may, suggest. Being in the moment is more appropriate. We can give terms we can give for mindfulness. I think Jagriti Nitin just clarified that bit for us. Okay, probably because of the lag. Okay. So, Nitin, then how is mindfulness different from meditation and hypnosis?
Uh, the thing is that I have actually come across people who have given me different explanations. For
Okay.
example, there are some people who would say mindfulness is a state of being, and meditations are like different techniques, like sitting in a particular posture, closing your eyes, taking certain steps, and so on.
Right.
I've
Right.
also had people saying the other way around, where they say that meditation is a state of being, and
Hmm.
mindfulness are like set of techniques that can help you get into the meditation zone. Now,
Okay.
those are like depending upon who you are speaking to and how they define the term meditation and mindfulness, the ideas change. Having said that, from a practical point of view, in the context that we are in today, technically, probably not technically, but from a practical point of view, they are more or less interchangeable, especially the way people use the terminology,
Okay.
right? But if I have to really kind of give you a distinction based on how I have seen people practicing and what are the objectives with which people practice meditation and mindfulness,
Hmm.
then I would actually say it this way, that for almost everyone that I've spoken to who practices mindfulness, or the way I look at mindfulness, the idea is become aware of something which is concrete, right? So we basically observe what is. You're becoming present to what really is.
Okay.
Meditation for a lot of people is about connecting to something abstract. So you will notice people who say, I want to connect to my higher self, or I want to connect to God, or I want to connect to universal consciousness. But generally, when people do meditation, their objective of doing a meditation is more about connecting to something more abstract, something greater than themselves. Uh, on the other hand, with most people who practice mindfulness, they would say that I would like to be more observant and more aware of what's there in the moment, what's happening currently.
Right.
So, to that extent, there is a distinction that you can create. But as I said, there are also people who use the word interchangeably.
Okay.
And the third thing you asked me was hypnosis, right? So,
Yeah.
with hypnosis, as we have mentioned, we have spoken about it like across multiple episodes now. Hypnosis for us is a state of receptivity. Now, once you're in that state of receptivity, whether you want to use it for becoming more consciously aware of what's happening around you or inside you, or
Hmm.
you want to use it to get in touch with what you are seeking in terms of abstract connections, both of them are possible.
Okay. Right.
Also, I think we discussed this earlier when we were talking about the hypnosis episode and how mindfulness can be used to induce a hypnotic state.
Right.
Mindfulness can be both a process to induce a hypnotic state, and it can also be the effect that we can create once the client is in a hypnotic state.
Right. Perfect. Great. Great. Yes, we did. Okay. So, Tripti is saying give examples of mindfulness.
So, Tripti, mindfulness is becoming aware, right? So, for example, if I were to ask you to look around and identify five things around you that you were not mindful about earlier, technically, even that is mindfulness, right? So,
Right.
anytime you become aware of what's happening around you, when you're completely in that sense of awareness about one thing or multiple things, you could be completely aware of one object and you're completely observant in it, or you could be able to observe multiple things, but you're aware of it consciously. You're mindful of them being there, then that both will get classified as mindfulness. And we'll come to more examples and techniques as we go ahead today.
Perfect. And what all benefits can we derive out of mindfulness?
Actually, there are a lot of benefits, but let's let's do it in a way in which we involve everyone who's watching also. So what I want to
Right.
do is, for now, I'm going to go to the next question that Mamta is going to ask me. But I want all of you to write down in the comments what do you think would be the benefits of mindfulness. And I'm sure that you already knew what mindfulness is, and I've also given you a brief definition. That it's about being consciously aware and being mindful, being consciously aware of what's there, being in the present, right?
Right.
Being completely present. Sorry. So rather than being in the present, let's say being completely present to what you are doing and where you are.
Perfect. Right. But Nitin, as we say that you should not get into any and all types of meditation when, let's say, when you're in a poor state of mind. Let's say, right now, if someone was in that state and they started becoming mindful, then they would completely become aware of and focus on that thought, wouldn't they? So in that case, so it could be like a contraindication for mindfulness, like. we do for meditation, or is it different?
No, Mamta, see, like we spoke about meditation and we said that there are different kinds of meditation. Actually, I'm not sure if we spoke about it in this series or not.
Hmm.
Anyway, so there are different kinds of meditations, right? And not all kinds of meditations can be done in all mental states. If you are in a
Right.
negative mental state, then another meditation should be done. If you are in a positive mental state, then another meditation should be done.
Correct.
Similarly, with mindfulness, the question is not mindful. The question is, what do you become mindful of? I can be in
Hmm.
a very depressed state and I can start becoming more and more aware of the depression and the sadness and the depressed thoughts that I have,
Correct.
where I can get completely engrossed in it. Then it would
Right.
probably be a bit of a challenge and a problem. And that's one of the reasons why
Correct.
any good anti-depression center would
Mm-hmm.
first refrain people from doing any kind of self-analysis when they're in depression,
Correct.
right? But at the same time, if people become mindful of what's happening outside them,
Hmm.
right? Then it's a separate thing because then you're putting your awareness out from all the negative thoughts that are going on in your head that you have been magnifying into what's
Hmm.
happening outside you, which probably is not as worse as the thoughts that you're having in your head right now.
Correct.
And that can actually become a starting phase for you to be able to create a change in your life.
Right. Correct. So Prince was asking what are the disadvantages of mindfulness. Um, what Nitin
So
just
Prince, that
explained. So if not used in the right context, then it can be disadvantageous, right?
that is, and there are a couple of other things that we will discuss. I think I'm sure you are going to ask me about what we need to be careful about. So when you ask me that question, I am going to answer a bit more in detail in terms of a couple of things that can go amiss when people focus too much on mindfulness, or when
Uh,
people end up becoming mindful without having the right skill set.
right. Nitin, Ritu is saying once you become mindful, what happens? There would be an end to observations.
I'm not sure what that means. I would need more clarity about once you become mindful, what happens. There would be an end of observations. Uh, No, not necessary. It all depends on again what mindfulness process you're doing. So Ritu has also had followed up with another statement below that why should mindfulness be negative or positive? It is an awareness of surroundings. It is Ritu an awareness of surroundings, but it's not just awareness of surroundings. It's also awareness of what's happening inside you. So if
Correct.
someone is extremely anxious and they start becoming very aware of their anxiety, they may also have a panic attack. So from a point of view of therapy, as a therapist, you have to be careful about what's happening with the client and whether they have the ability to handle what they're becoming mindful about, right?
Correct.
As a general practice, yes, if you're not a if you're not going to a therapist, or if you're not facing problems and you're learning to develop a sense of mindfulness, oh, it's amazing. It can probably help you prevent a lot of problems that you may have in your life. But for people who are already in an intensely bad state, there you
Hmm.
have to be a bit more careful when you're working with them,
Okay.
right? For example, while we talk about mindfulness, I have had clients who have actually come and told me that we are so mindful about even the minutest of sound that matlab, it bothers us. It's like too much of information in our head. There is so much happening and I'm almost acutely aware of all of them. So now while they're mindful, they don't have the ability to become mindful by contracting their awareness and by expanding their awareness. That mindfulness is just happening with them, well, for the lack of any other word, unmindfully.
Correct. Hope we have been able to address what you said, Ritu. Nidhi is saying we would start living more consciously, then choosing to respond becomes easier than reacting.
Perfect.
And Bhavya is saying creativity increases when you're mindful and you would land up giving your best at what you do. Lakshmi is saying decision making. Supriya is saying, is mindfulness always positive? I think we just spoke about that. Ajaz is saying mindfulness can help a person become more aware of their current problems.
And then if they take the steps, it can also help them resolve the problem. But as you said,
Correct.
at times awareness is not equal to change. A lot of people also get stuck over there.
Okay. Jagriti is saying to be consciously aware of our thoughts. For example, when thinking about what ifs and leading to anxiety, we can be more mindful of our thoughts, which can lead to more what I cans. This will decrease the anxiety as well as the cycle of negative thoughts.
Perfect.
Okay, Atri is saying mindfulness makes the person see situation and other people objectively to respond appropriately instead of reacting mechanically. Kanika is saying I can cut my anxiety for future and negativity of my past in the state of mindfulness.
Which is true. If you're able to make use of that mindfulness correctly and you are doing the right set of processes, then it would. So again, that's where the point comes in. It's just not about, like we spoke about hypnosis or meditation. It's not about hypnosis or meditation or mindfulness being good or bad, right? There are multiple processes, and not all processes can be applicable at every point of time. So that distinction has to be made clearly. A lot of times we kind of take all processes in a particular um, ideology or all particular processes in a particular under a particular concept and think that all of them are equally applicable in all situations. That doesn't really happen. That's where your understanding, especially as a practitioner, comes in.
Correct. Atri saying mindfulness makes the person see situation. Okay, this we have spoken about. Sushmita is saying it can help to concentrate and stress less. It can also help us with self acceptance.
Perfect.
Okay. Ajaz is saying again, mindfulness is really helpful for those who spend too much time being sad about the past as well as those who are too afraid of the future.
Correct. Provided as again that they are able to see, again the question is what are they becoming mindful of,
Correct.
right? And that's what is important.
Smita is saying little time but lots to talk. That's why I said in a
Perfect.
15 episode series, we are on the 21st.
And we have added one more for tomorrow, so 22.
And quite happily so. So
Yeah, and
that
quite happy.
that's a happy comment. Yeah. Okay. So Nitin,
Uh,
yes. How can we use mindfulness in therapy and how can it be beneficial in therapy?
so Mamta, again, so that's where the idea of therapy comes in. That a lot of therapies are actually using mindfulness actively, and they're using it very systematically, which is amazing. So we already spoke about DBT earlier when we were
Yes.
talking about the cognitive therapy episode.
Correct. Correct.
There's acceptance and commitment therapy. I think someone actually spoke about self acceptance. So
Yes.
when done properly, acceptance and commitment therapy can be extremely, extremely powerful for clients.
Yes.
Uh, so the idea is basically this, that when clients are not even mindful of how they are living their life,
Hmm.
then to be able to create a change is difficult, right? uh, because they don't know how they are creating or sustaining the current problems they have.
Right.
Mindfulness can help the therapist help clients become more aware of their thoughts, their emotions, their biases, their beliefs. And then once the client begins to become aware of them, can also help the client accept or change whatever they're becoming aware of or mindful of. And if there are situations where they're becoming mindful and aware of the lack of skills that they have, the therapist can also help them develop those skills. And not just therapists, a lot of people can themselves also end up doing that,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Perfect.
So,
Hmm.
so that's basically the thing. And in all, so while a lot of therapies use mindfulness now, obviously the way we are using mindfulness can change. CBT, for example, when we talk about helping people become aware of their unconscious thoughts so that we can change them, focuses on mindfulness of content,
Hmm.
right? While there are other processes which will help you just become mindful of the fact that they are thinking, thereby creating a distance between them and their thinking. Remember, we
Correct.
spoke about disassociation?
Yes. 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 Yes.
So that's like being able to look at our thoughts from outside and observe them from outside. So again, that can be useful. And then there are certain processes which will actually use mindfulness and then combine that with acceptance and change to be able to create a more, what should I say, a more sustainable change.
Right. Correct. Nitin, Ritu is asking, is excitement counter mindful? Is it bad or good?
I wouldn't say good or bad actually. See, everything has a context, right? If by now, with everything that we have spoken in the last 20, 21 episodes, I'm sure you understand that we don't personally think there's anything which is completely bad or completely good. Everything has its context, and in that context, it's useful. If you're excited and and you're mindful of that excitement, and that mindful excitement helps you do the things more effectively, well, that's brilliant. But if you're so excited that in that excitement you are not able to become mindful of what's happening around you, then that excitement can also be a bit of a concern.
Perfect. Smita is asking what time tomorrow. Smita, tomorrow is our last episode. I've answered 10 p.m. Kripa is saying it increases more awareness related to self and environment around them.
True.
And Prince is asking, does mindfulness meditation, impair task motivation? There is research on it. What is your opinion?
So again, for me, the idea is how do you define mindfulness meditation? Because there is no one mindfulness meditation. There are different kinds of mindfulness meditations, and in
Correct.
researches, that's the place where people kind of, especially with fields like mindfulness meditation, hypnosis, as I mentioned earlier, then your psychoanalysis. All of these fields are not made up of one technique, right? They are made up of multiple techniques, and each technique can serve its own purposes. So if you end up taking up a wrong technique in mindfulness, and then you ask people to focus on it too much in the wrong mental state, and you
Right.
do a research on it, then probably that research is not representing the entire field of mindfulness. At the same time, the reverse is also true, where you take one mindfulness activity applied with one set of people, and that gives you brilliant results. Doesn't mean that every activity in mindfulness is equally effective with every area. So when
Right.
you're asking me for my opinion is that we have to contextualize that, and based on that, we need to determine whether it impairs task motivation or not. I can surely think of ways in which mindfulness meditation will impair task motivation. I can also think of meditations which can actually help the client feel extremely, what should I say, engrossed and extremely committed to the tasks that they have to do, thereby making them more motivated. So it just depends on which kind of mindfulness activity we are talking about. And remember, mindfulness is just becoming aware of something, right? So while if I'm supposed to do my office work, and if I'm becoming aware of the sounds of fights that are happening in my family, then even that is mindfulness, because I'm aware of something completely. But the problem is that will then interfere with the task that I need to complete. At the same time, if I can completely be mindful of the task that I'm doing and be engrossed in that, then that changes the impact of it.
Perfect. Kanika is saying, how can we deal with a 10-year-old boy who is overly aware about everything around?
Kanika, I'll come to that question in a moment, because that is one of the things when I mentioned that in therapy, we have to be aware that at times people are too consciously aware,
Too
and
aware,
that can
yeah.
create a problem. So I would share a case study where I was working with an anxiety client who had uh, what should I say, a similar issue.
Right, right. Uh, Nitin, for some reason, the live got interrupted. Is it going fine on your end?
No, the live is going fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Tripti is saying, tell some mindfulness activities.
All right. So uh, as I said, first thing is mindfulness is actually about being able to become mindful of what's happening around you. So the first and the most simple activity is look around you and find out the five things that you can notice that you have not noticed earlier. That will be one of the first steps of becoming mindful. You are training your mind to become aware of things that you were earlier not aware of, things that are there in your environment,
Okay.
right? Uh, Second, all right. So before I again go to techniques, let me explain this, and then I'll connect it to technique. When we talk about techniques of mindfulness, as I said earlier, it's important what you're becoming mindful of, right? Now, mindfulness is about becoming aware of things, but how much can you become aware of is a question mark. We spoke about superheroes in one of the earlier episodes where they all of a sudden recognize that they have a hero capacity,
Hmm.
and what happens with them?
They start hearing all kinds of requests, pleas for help, prayers, uh, everything. People who are stuck in some challenge, crying out for help, and all that.
Correct. Now, what does the actor do after that?
So they somehow are able to filter and prioritize on, which is the most pressing or the most urgent. Somebody who's hanging from a building is probably that's more urgent than somebody who's requesting to um, you know um, for a gift, for some, a material gift, so that kind of a thing. So they're able to prioritize basically.
Perfect. So the answer that I'm giving with respect to techniques will also help, I think, the question that Kanika asked about the 10-year-old boy. So,
Hmm.
what really happens is when you are working towards developing mindfulness, if you
Hmm.
all of a sudden start becoming mindful about too many things, the quantum
Hmm.
of information can overwhelm you, which is what probably is happening with the 10-year-old boy, and which is what was happening with the client that I had with anxiety. Now,
Correct.
the way to work with anxiety is we have to first learn to shrink our awareness and become mindful about specific things,
Right.
and then start expanding our awareness from there.
Correct. That's brilliant. Right.
Right? Now,
Hmm.
coming to the question of techniques, can we talk about certain techniques related to mindfulness?
Yes. So,
Um,
Bhavya mentioned grounding technique.
Correct. So, grounding technique is a good example. Again, which version of grounding technique? But yes, a lot of mindfulness activities do help you ground.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So, I was talking about mindfulness techniques, right?
Right.
Perfect. So, a lot of times when we are trying to help people um, shrink their awareness to specific things, it may be
Hmm.
difficult for them because they are too distracted by things, right? So the way I generally begin with people when I have to help them develop a greater degree of mindfulness is like I began with all of you. I asked you to look around and find five things that you can notice right now. So that's the first step. Then I would ask you, can you notice three things that are happening around you,
Right.
and then one thing, and then I'll
Hmm.
ask you to describe that more in detail. So let's quickly do this, Mamta, so that it kind of becomes easier for everyone to understand what I'm saying. Would you
Right.
like to?
Yeah, of course. Why not?
Perfect. So can you look around and tell me three things that you're able to notice right now?
Okay. So the phone, the tripod, the laptop, the couch, the cushions. Do you want
Okay.
more? All.
No. So I was looking for three. You're giving me five. Brilliant. So now
Okay.
can you give me three more? Just three out of these five that you can become more aware of.
Uh, the phone screen, the laptop, the tripod.
Perfect. Two things.
The phone screen and the tripod.
One thing.
The phone screen.
And now if I were to ask you to look closely at the phone screen and describe the phone screen to me in more detail, how would you describe it?
Okay, so there's a thick black margin on all sides. The edges are rounded. Um, there's a stark white background. On the top, I can see the URL in the address bar of the browser. I can see you, me, the background behind me. I can see your earphones, your sunglasses with some kind of reflection from probably your laptop screen. The
Perfect.
recording button is red. There's, I can say more if you want.
Perfect. Perfect. So as you're observing that, I want you to
Yes.
now just start focusing on the screen and notice the
Okay.
different colors on the screen, the shades on the screen. You don't have to describe it for us now, but I just want you to begin to become aware of it,
Okay. All right.
right? And once you feel that you're beginning to become more aware of how the colors look, the different shades in the colors, right? That subtle shift in probably the way your skin looks and my skin looks, and all the other differences, then I would like you to say yes and let me know. Where you're completely focused and engrossed with what you're noticing.
Yes.
Yes?
Hmm.
Brilliant. So we were able to take your awareness from multiple things into a very single thing that you were able to focus on completely,
Yes.
right? So that will be one of the most basic activities that you can do to train your mind to become aware of something fully, right? What really happens is many a times we begin by looking at one thing and we try to become aware of it completely. That may be difficult because your mind is not accustomed to that. So begin by looking at four, five things and then start kind of reducing it to one and then start becoming more and more aware of that. That will be generally a easier process to follow than directly looking at one and trying to get into a state of mindfulness with that.
Yes. This also seems easier.
It is. It is.
Okay. That's great.
Now, this is one technique where we are becoming aware of something that's outside you.
Correct.
I can also ask you to just observe your breath.
Okay.
and in a guided form tell you to notice the sensations that is there around your nose when you're breathing in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Right.
just allow your awareness to follow the breath as the breath goes in,
Correct.
and then as you breathe out, follow the awareness as you're breathing out,
Yes.
right? Again, what you're doing is you're becoming mindful of your breathing,
Correct.
right? So that becomes another process.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, you can take anything. I know of people who actually love plants. So they would literally sit with a plant and they
Hmm.
would start observing the different shades and colors that are there in the plant. I was with one of my friends once and he showed me a plant and he told me that, Nitin, tell me how many colors are there in this plant. And I looked at the plant and I was like, one green. I mean, that's what was most evident for me, right? And when we sat and when we started looking at the plant closely,
Hmm.
I am generally not a very color I don't have such a vocabulary for colors, right?
Correct.
But
Okay.
I was able to identify 5 or different shades of green in that one plant, and I'm sure there were more. My friend actually told me that there are 10 that he could recognize.
Wow. Okay.
So you could take up any specific thing and start observing that and become mindful of that.
Hmm. Got it. That's interesting. Right. So you don't
Then,
really need elaborate techniques or like very complex processes.
in fact, my experience has been the simpler and the more routine activities you pick up, the better it is.
Mm-hmm.
Take so another mindfulness meditation is walking meditation,
Correct.
where when you're actually walking, you literally feel that when your feet touches the floor, how
Hmm.
your feet feels on the floor, the
Hmm.
sensations that are there on the floor, or sorry, on your feet. As you
Hmm.
walk ahead,
Hmm.
the muscles in your body, which muscles you're able to notice, all of
Hmm.
that, the more and more aware you become of it, the more mindful you are becoming.
Correct.
Right now, that's a very routine day-to-day activity, and you could do it anytime. You're walking, you like walking, you go to a garden. Obviously, not right now, but when you go to a garden, when you're walking, then you
Hmm.
feel how that grass feels on your feet. You're literally experiencing all of that,
Correct.
right? When people are in depression, one of the things that you will notice that people they would be recommended, especially by their therapist, or if they're in a anti-depression center, then the anti-depression center would recommend that they should walk and they should hug a tree and so on. The idea
Mm-hmm.
is you are actually making them aware of sensations in their body which are outside them. You are helping them move their awareness out of their head for now. Awareness of thoughts is also mindfulness. Awareness of
Correct.
sensations on the body is also mindfulness, but the contexts are different.
Right.
Right?
Right. That.
And especially in therapy, that's what we need to be careful about, because those contexts determine whether what we are doing will help the client or can end up hindering the client.
Right. Got that.
Then I had one friend who used to would tell me that, Nitin, I love eating mindfulness, and every time he would take a sweet, oh, you had to look at him, the the pleasure with which he would eat that sweet, and you could literally notice that he's probably experiencing every shade of taste that exists in that sweet,
Right. That's great. That's interesting. Okay.
right? So
Nitin.
now just
Yeah.
Mamta, एक second. So
Yeah.
all of these are different processes. There are others that we can talk about, but these are like examples. And the reason I'm talking about day-to-day activities first is because as therapists, when you're working with clients, when you ask them to become more aware of what they're already doing, that's easier rather than asking them to sit and focus on something that they are not doing, because that requires an additional effort on their part.
Correct.
You are asking
Correct.
something, sorry.
Yes. No, I was just taking too many questions and comments. Kripa is saying, how can we differentiate between MBCT and MBSR?
I'm not sure, Kripa, if I'm the right person to answer that, because I don't practice either of those processes by themselves, because we use a more integrated approach, more eclectic approach. We are able to take the best of MBCT and apply it as a part of our process. But my general understanding is that uh, the focus on stress is where the difference will be. Where the focus is more on stress when it comes to MBSR, and MBCT would be more broader. But I may be wrong on this because, as I said, this is not these are specifically not the processes that we use. So I probably am not the right person to answer that question.
Okay. Smita is saying, I think mindfulness can be used in all therapies.
It can be.
Okay.
In fact,
We,
eventually, all therapy's objective at some level is to help the client become more mindful, and then obviously also create a change with that mindfulness.
Veena is asking, how does the concept of flow from positive psychology and mindfulness relate?
So, who did you mention, Mamta, asked that question?
Veena.
Veena. So, Veena, the idea of flow is that when you're in the flow, you're completely in a state of awareness. You're completely engrossed in the activity. So that flow and that mindfulness state for a lot of people will more or less be the same, right? Uh, the the difference is when we talk about flow, people are only talking about flow in terms of like when you're passionate about something, you automatically get into that state of flow.
Yes.
Mindfulness also is about learning how to get into that state of flow with things that you will not be passionate about.
Okay, that's interesting. Yep, correct. Atri is saying body scanning technique.
Body scanning techniques will fall into mindfulness, where you can again scan the entire body and you can observe the different sensations in the body and so on. I think there is one process that I am really in love with when it comes to mindfulness, and it's an NLP based process that if Mamta is game, I would run before the end of the session.
Okay. Bhavya is hoping, I hope I see a lizard today at least.
Mamta, even I hope that you are able to see a lizard today around you.
Now, how do I make one appear? Tell me,
You know, you
teach
can.
me that.
I'll tell you what you can do. You can actually
Okay.
switch on it. You can actually switch on a TV or a net YouTube and search for like the
Lizard
worst
videos?
looking lizards. Yeah,
Okay.
and then tell us whether you were able to watch them or not. At least that will be a good reference point for us to know.
Wow. Okay. Jagrati is saying grounding technique 3 to 1 can be used for ADHD clients, especially kids, in a fun way, in a more fun way.
Yes, it can. It can be. In fact, the process where we ask people to observe three things, two things, one things, can also be used to both shrink awareness and expand awareness. So, for example, there's an hypnotic induction called the Betty Erickson induction method, which focused on this. So, what you really do is you ask the client to first focus on three things that they can see, three things that they can hear, and three things that they can feel. Then you ask them to narrate two things that they can see, two things that they can feel, and two things that they can hear. Then you do it with one thing. Then you ask them to close their eyes and do the same process again. Three things that comes to their mind with their eyes closed visually, three things auditorily, three things kinesthetically, and then two, and then one. And once they're at that one thing that's there in their head, then you can ask them to get in touch with the feelings that they have, which with that one image in their mind. Ask them to explore those feelings so they are becoming more mindful of that one thing per se. And then you want to expand their awareness. So let's say I am asking the client to become aware of a happy memory. So we do this where the client becomes aware of that one happy memory and they're able to describe that memory in complete details. And then you can also ask them that as you become aware of this memory, you're becoming aware of another memory similar to this memory, and then third memory similar to this memory. And you're able to see how the three memories are connected and how they have influenced your life. So you're kind of broadening the application of awareness and mindfulness into therapy, both by shrinking the awareness and by broadening the awareness. I hope as a technique, this is clear for all of you.
Yeah, that sounds really brilliant. Great. Kripa is saying sitting meditation technique.
Where we are focusing on awareness. Yes. So, for example, think of chanting, right? If you're chanting by completely being aware of the chant,
Hmm.
and it's like when you are chanting and when the sounds are getting created in your mind, you are literally aware of all the sounds that are getting created in the background. Why
Correct.
in that sound? When you are narrating it, you could literally feel your tongue touching your mouth in terms of how you are speaking, right? So when you are beginning to develop all of that awareness while you're chanting, And it's not just chanting meditation, it also becomes mindfulness.
Perfect. Perfect. Ajaz is saying, I think we need to be careful with techniques of mindfulness involving body sensations like breathing or body scan for people who are too sensitive about their physical sensations or people with health anxiety disorder.
So that's exactly what I was talking about, Azaz, earlier. That, for example, when you have clients who you know are already anxious because of the sensations that they have, uh, directly asking them to observe those sensations can be a bit tricky because that awareness can make them even more uncomfortable, right? Now, what I generally do with, and this is generally what happens with people when they're coming with anxiety because of over awareness, which they are not able to handle. I would generally start with the transformational metaphor process, and I have no reasons to explain why, but I have got some really, really effective results with anxiety clients, including the awareness bit when we have done the transformational metaphor. They are naturally able to control their awareness more. I have not been able to figure out to be true why this is happening, but the process has helped, and I've worked with at least four such clients where the process has invariably helped them become less anxious about the level of awareness that they have. Okay.
Perfect.
So while I would not focus on mindfulness with these people, there are other processes that I will do so that they become more comfortable with what they're aware of, and we will teach them to shrink their awareness first and be able to focus on few things rather than other things when they need to.
Right.
I hope Azaz
Uh,
that is in sync with what you were saying.
right. Supriya is saying 70-year-old woman is constantly disturbed by the thought that she has not done enough for her husband who is no more. Can mindfulness help her? How? If not, what is the best way to help this person?
Okay. So Supriya, can mindfulness help? Again, depends upon what kind of mindfulness you are doing. So if you can teach them to become more mindful about what they are doing, so where they are sitting, what they are doing, every time they have this thought that they've not done enough, then at least that will help them push their awareness out of their head into their body, which will make them feel better. Will that be a long term resolution? The thing about thoughts are that when you don't work with those thoughts, especially the persistent ones which are being driven by emotional issues, then they have a tendency to come back. And when they come back with a vengeance. So, to that extent, I would say that these mindfulness activities that we are talking about can be a good start, but you will have to then use additional mindfulness processes to see where their thoughts are leading them. Where are these thoughts coming from? What are the thoughts? What could be the things that they have probably not done that they think they should have done? And then how they can use more activities to develop skills to be able to either do them if it's possible, or to be able to get a closure. And for all of that, we actually discussed processes earlier because it's related to her husband. Probably a hypnodrama, if the husband has passed away, would be useful because that's where the closure will come from. If the husband is still alive,
No,
hopefully,
no,
if that's the
he's no
case,
more.
then you can also. You were saying something, Mamta?
She has mentioned the husband is no more.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So if the husband is no more, then we are talk. Then I would suggest that begin with mindfulness. Do the hypnodrama in a way that they are completely mindful of the fact that they are expressing everything that they want to express. If they want to say sorry, they are saying sorry. They are experiencing what we call as that sense of forgiveness, that they have been able to forgive themselves and they've received that forgiveness from other person. Uh, and they're able to really experience it in the body fully. And that's where mindfulness would then come into play.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
The fact that they are not just intellectually talking about the fact that I've said something to my partner in my imaginative state, and I know that he has intellectually forgiven me, but they are able to experience it in their body completely.
Right.
That's where that feeling will become more internalized and more solidified, and that probably will help her move ahead. If that's not enough, then depending upon what her response is, we can probably find out what needs to be done next.
Perfect. Got that. Uh, okay. I don't see any more questions. Um, okay. Suryakant is asking, can mindfulness be used to help people with OCD of cleaning?
Mindfulness will be one of the process that you can use to be able to help them become aware of both their thoughts and their compulsions. You can also help them see the connection through mindfulness with respect to how their thoughts are leading to the behaviors that they have. If you're able to do objective mindfulness processes, you can also help them see their compulsive thoughts from a distance so that they don't feel compelled to act upon it,
All right.
right?
Ritu is
So all
asking.
of these things can be done.
Okay. Ritu is asking, will Gestalt be useful in this case? I think she's referring to the old woman case.
The gestalt will be, so when I spoke about hypnodrama is basically the hypnotic version of psychodrama.
Okay.
So yes, it would be.
Perfect. Okay. All right.
Also,
Uh,
Suryakant, just to complete that answer, sorry. So you could do mindfulness for all of this, and then you can also do mindfulness to help them become more aware of how there are certain patterns that have led to these compulsions in their head. So it just depends upon what degree of mindfulness you're planning to apply, right? And that's the reason why I said that with mindfulness and hypnosis, the idea is you can look at mindfulness both as a way to induce a hypnotic state, and you could actually look at hypnosis as a way of helping people become more and more mindful and see connections that they were not able to see earlier and work with those connections.
right. Minakshi is asking, can the treatment, why can't we implement mindfulness technique, particularly like a treatment? I mean, we have to suggest it for long term.
I'm not sure if I completely understand the question, but with what I have understood, uh, and you can clarify if you have any things that you would like to add to this, Minakshi, that mindfulness by itself takes it takes time for you to be able to develop it, right? And the problem at times is that clients come to us in such a bad state that for them to be able to develop that skill to be mindful can be a big question mark in itself. And that's the reason why you may want to use other processes so that you can help them deal with things that are coming in the way of their mindfulness. And as I said, while we are doing this, that process of mindfulness continues with them. So it's not that we are not using mindfulness. We may begin with mindfulness, and then we can also add other things that we want to add so that their ability to maintain that mindfulness is greater.
Minakshi has further added meditation.
Uh, so Meenakshi, again, depends upon which meditation we are doing. There are certain meditations, for example, awareness of thoughts. When you're constantly focusing on your thoughts in a meditative state, if you're depressed, can really be a lot more harmful than it does good. I've had people who, because of thought-based meditations, have gone from um, uh, a starting phase of meditation into deeper chronic cases of depressions. This is also true when you actually look at some of the spiritual groups. So you will notice that certain people, obviously, that's not to say that spiritual groups per se are, well, I don't know, actually, I can push it both ways. But, anyways, the idea is that a lot of times people go into meditations thinking meditations will be a way for me to improve my life. There are different kinds of meditations, there are different kinds of techniques. Not all techniques are same, and they cannot all be done in the same interest. They all create different effects.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Um, Nitin, what about times when the client can't focus on something specific? As you said, they are in such a bad state sometimes, or in a poor mental state, and or they are too distracted. Then what can we do?
So that's when Mamta, use that particular process that you begin by asking them to look at the three, four things that are happening around them. So
Okay.
basically, you're helping them focus on the distractions that they already have.
Oh wow.
And then
Okay.
from there, help them focus on a lesser distractions. Bring them their awareness to one distraction, and then ask them to kind of describe it in more detail. So what happens is you're able to help them shrink their awareness from the multiple things that they were distracted about to that one thing that they are now describing. This is also like pacing and leading. I think we discussed this in one of the episodes, where you're
And
beginning not by telling the client what needs to be done. You begin by checking what the client is already experiencing. Help them observe what they're experiencing, because that's a real experience from them for them now. And as they start observing that, then you can move their awareness to where you want them to be. Pacing and leading can actually be a very, very powerful process for mindfulness and
Nitin,
hypnosis both.
even if that distraction is in terms of too many thoughts at the same time.
Uh, if it's a thought-based distraction, there are actually a couple of things that you can do. Um,
Okay.
One is where you ask the client to just close their eyes, observe the thoughts in their head, and ask them to ask themselves, what is my next thought? And just go like a sequence. What is my next thought? What is my next thought? So you're asking them to really ask themselves and observe what the next thought is, which
Okay,
means that your mind would then be forced to select a thought rather than have a plethora of thoughts jumping together.
got that.
If
Right,
that works,
right.
that will be useful. If that
Yes,
doesn't work, and it's possible that it may not work, because when thoughts come, at times they come uh, too many of them come together, right? If that is the case, then I would probably either ask them to focus on something external. If not, then I would use what we call as a gibberish meditation process. Now, when so this is not mindfulness per se, but I'm kind of using another process to first break the pattern of thoughts and then help the client get into a mindful state. So gibberish is obviously talking in a way in which it doesn't make sense, right? It's word salad, where whatever you're saying has no sense either to you or for anyone else,
right,
right? And then when we talk in this way, when you talk like this for 30-40 seconds, your mind has no idea what hit it, because your conscious mind, whenever it's thinking, is still thinking in a language that you can understand. Notice that. Have you ever noticed we never think in abstract language that we can't make sense of? The images
right.
that we see in our mind, the thoughts we have in our head, they're all in language that we can understand,
Understand, yes.
right? So the moment you start speaking to yourself in gibberish, it literally like breaks a pattern, because your conscious mind doesn't know what hit it, and then you experience a sense of blankness where you can start focusing on certain things at a time.
Okay, that's great. Meenakshi said, not that thoughtless meditation, but later she followed it up by saying that I got you. Okay, perfect, perfect. Um, Nitin, I think we have taken up most of the things that I wanted to ask you.
All right, so
Uh,
let me just cover a couple of other things, Mamta, that I want to cover,
right,
because we are
right,
talking about therapy and so on. So there are
right,
certain generic processes like we spoke about in the CBT explanation that can also
right,
be used for mindfulness. So
right,
journaling, logging down your thoughts and your emotions.
right,
All of these are activities that can actually help you develop more mindfulness, and these are activities that you can do with your clients. Ideally, you should do with your clients,
great. Okay,
right? Uh, we spoke about grounding activities. Uh, we spoke about walking meditations, eating meditations, or mindfulness activities. So basically, any activity. I have a friend who. So there was a time when I used to live at the Marine Drive, right? I was in a hostel. So I have a friend who would go every night, sit down on that drive, and would just feel the air that would come and touch his face, and he would literally try to experience that sensation of how that air feels on his body. Again, mindfulness. So basically, the idea is, as a therapist, you just have to understand the concept of mindfulness and let yourself become more creative about how you want to make use of that mindfulness. Matlab, I've had times where the client is having a glass of water there, or they have a bottle of water in their hand, and as they have the bottle, I tell them, as you have that bottle in your hand, I want you to just notice where your fingers are, and
right,
then notice the sensation on your finger and on your hand. And then as you take that bottle and as you drink that water, then notice that water going into your system. So I'm actually narrating to them something that's already happening with them. So it's a lot more easier for them to become mindful about it. So it's just that you need to be more creative about how you can help people become more aware, and then how you want to make use of that awareness.
perfect. Veena is asking, gibberish would be effective in the same principle of confusion technique in hypnosis?
It is. Veena, it is that would be correct.
Right. And I'm happy that people have been kind of very sequentially following all the episodes. Supriya is asking, is Vipassana based on the principle of mindfulness?
Supriya, I have never been to Vipassana, so the information that I'm now giving is secondhand, in the sense that it comes from people who have been to Vipassana. and their experience is that a lot of activities in Vipassana would help them develop the would be based on what we talk about as mindfulness. But again, this is not an information that's first hand because I've never been to Vipassana myself. Probably sometime in future I would, but not as yet.
Okay. Um, I don't see any more questions or comments. A lot of
Perfect.
people
So
said yes.
we are at 11 right now today.
This is another record that we have made. Completing
So
on
I
time.
wanted to do one process with you, Mamta.
Okay.
That I and the reason I want you to do this one process is because actually you have already done this process, but the reason I wanted to demonstrate this
Okay.
process for all of you who are on the episode today is because it was this process that actually made me understand what mindfulness really is. Because earlier people would keep telling me, Nitin, become mindful, become more observant, and I would keep wondering, what do I become more mindful of? What do I become more observant of? That and no one would really give me an answer to that question, and that would really bug me at one point of time. uh, then when I was attending an NLP workshop, we did some processes where we were observing the sensations in our body. That was my starting point where I started recognizing how uh, mindfulness can be what people really mean by mindfulness. And then there is one process that I think I saw in one of the videos that Bandler was doing, where he was talking about helping people become aware of the sensations in their body when they are experiencing certain feelings in their mind. Okay, and then we started experimenting with that process with certain clients when they were feeling certain emotions that they were not able to control. Oh, I again, I have no words to describe how powerful that process of mindfulness can be. So probably the easiest is for me to run it so that you obviously you've already experienced it earlier, but people can understand what that process is and why that process can be so important.
Okay.
Right. So Mamta, what I want you to do is think about a memory where you have experienced sadness.
Okay.
You don't have to describe the memory for us. I just want you to think about it in your head so that you're aware of that memory. Right.
Okay.
And then I want you to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, I want you to notice that event where you were sad playing up in front of you as if it's playing on a screen.
Okay.
And just notice the event from the beginning to the end till you're able to identify the exact sequence of event. What was happening just before you started feeling sad? What happened that triggered that feeling of sadness? How the event meant that slowly the sadness level started increasing. At some point, the level of sadness would be at its peak, and then the place where that level of sadness started dropping down again. What was happening in that event, and eventually, what was the last thing that you noticed before the sadness disappeared? Right, in terms of that event, once you're able to observe the entire sequence before what triggered the peak, it being coming down, and then it completely fading away. Then say yes and let me know. Brilliant. Now, what I want you to do is imagine yourself going closer to that screen, step inside it, while the scene goes back to the starting point just before the sadness starts. And then I want you to step inside yourself. And as you step inside yourself, notice that as the scene plays, where do you start experiencing the sadness first? Where in your body do you experience it? And then notice as that event continues and as that level of sadness increases, how are you experiencing that sadness in your body? How is that sensation changing? Is it changing? Is it moving from one part of the body to another part of the body? Uh, just notice the entire flow. And then notice where do you experience that sadness at its peak? in which part of the body. And then notice as it starts reducing, how does that sensation flow in your body? Where does it move to? How does the context of the sensation change? And where do you feel it the last, just before it fizzles out and fizzles away?
Yes.
Now, I want you to replay this in your mind a couple of times till you're able to completely notice the starting point, the flow in the body, where it is at its peak, how do you experience it in your body at its peak? When it starts reducing, how does it start reducing? And when it fizzles out, how does it really fizzle out? Where do you feel it at the last? Just notice the entire flow, and only when you're able to notice the entire flow, then say yes and let me know. Even if you have to repeat the experience a couple of times, that's perfect. Now, what I want you to do is allow that scene to fade away from your mind,
Okay.
to settle down, and then you can slowly come back to the present, feeling fresh and comfortable.
Hmm.
Now, you notice what I did? I asked you to observe the sensation of that sadness in your body.
Hmm.
Now, let's do something else. I want you to just close your eyes,
Okay.
and this time, without thinking about the event, just create that flow again, where it began in the body, how it moved up, and where did it go. So, just replicate the sensations in the body without really thinking about the event. And as you replicate that sensations in the body, let me know what happens to your feeling. Even without thinking about that memory, is that sadness coming? It is?
Uh,
Okay. And then once again, just allow that to settle down and fade away. And then slowly open your eyes. Now, can you quickly think about a happy memory? Like where you felt really, really happy?
where I felt really, really happy. Yes.
Yes. And can we close our eyes and repeat the same process again with happiness?
So look on the screen.
Correct. No, so I'm describing that to you. So what I want
Okay.
you to do is just close your eyes, observe your breath for a couple of rounds, and then imagine that screen in front of you, and in that screen, a really happy scene playing, right? And then, as you notice that happy scene playing, notice the before, what triggers the happiness, the flow of the entire scene, what is happening in the scene, when do you experience that happiness at its peak, and how at after some point, obviously, that feeling would start reducing, and then it will come back to normalcy. So now that you know the event, go ahead, step into the screen, step inside yourself, and notice the flow in your body of where does the happiness begin as you experience that happiness. And again, how does it flow in the body? Where do you experience it in the when it is at its peak? And then where do you experience it as it starts reducing and as it fizzles out, right? And then play it again till you're able to understand that flow completely. So much so that if I asked you to play that flow again later on, you're able to create that flow.
Yes.
Yes, completely.
Yep.
Brilliant. Now, what I want you to do is allow the image to settle down. So let the event go away,
Right.
and then just recreate the flow of happiness. And let me know when you recreate the flow. Once the flow is at its peak, where the feeling is like really high, the happiness is intense, and you are able to experience the sensations in the body. of that intense happiness? Then say yes and let me know.
Yes.
Now, while you continue maintaining that happy sensation that you're experiencing in your body,
Hmm.
I want you to quickly think about that sad memory that you were talking about, and I want you to literally imagine it in your eyes, in your mind, while the happy sensations are flowing in your body. And I want you to remain mindful of those sensations that are there while you mentally become aware of that sad memory.
Can't do it.
So I want you to just picturize the image. While you may not be able to feel sad, that's okay. I want you to at least be able to see the image of that sad memory while you're playing the happy flow in your mind.
Uh, no, it comes up, but then it immediately vanishes. So it pops and goes.
Okay. So can we just see if we can keep it still over there for a bit more moment while you continue remaining very mindful, very aware of the sensations in your body of happiness. So it's like a still image of that scene that is there in front of you. So someone clicked a photo and has kept the photo in
Yeah,
front of
yeah.
you.
That I can do. Yes.
Perfect. While you're experiencing the happy sensations, what happens as you look at the sad memory?
It it looks silly. Um, uh,
Yes.
it looks silly. It yeah.
Yeah. So are you able to like experience the sadness?
No.
So what I want you to do is while you have these happy flow in the body, while maintaining that happy flow and keeping your awareness completely on the happy flow, I want you to try and make yourself feel sad. Like really try hard to make yourself feel sad while the happy sensations flow in your body.
I can.
Right? Brilliant. Now what I want you to do is just allow the image to settle down, allow this feeling to settle down. Slowly observe your breath again, and then bring both your hands together, rub them, bring them closer to your eyes. Feel the warmth of the hand in your eyes, and then slowly open your eyes, coming back to the present, feeling good and fresh about yourself. Right? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now I want you to do one last small test. Just close your eyes and just think about the sad memory and try to feel sad thinking about the sad memory, the same memory that you had picked up earlier. So I really want you to notice that memory of sadness that earlier made you feel sad. And as you imagine that memory again, what is it that you're feeling?
Mm, so there's an overall, like, it's indifference and uh, I think silly is the overall feeling. How you feel silly when you kind of make a lame joke, that kind of silly.
Okay. So are you able to feel sad now about that particular sad memory that you were feeling sad earlier?
No.
I really want you to try hard and make yourself feel sad. And it's funny how, especially if you were to start thinking about the happy flow again, no matter how hard you try, you're not able to make yourself feel sad.
With that, definitely not. Even otherwise, so if I stop that, to be honest, I'm not really feeling anything about that memory.
Perfect. Brilliant. So
It's
just
like
once again,
it's like a, a picture that you see in a book and okay, something happened. That kind of a feeling.
perfect. So I want you to bring both your hands together, rub them again, bring it closer to your eyes, feel the warmth in your eyes. right? And that's what mindfulness can do for you. Because the moment you become mindful of the sensations in your body, then you don't require memory and so on. You could literally replay that sensation in your body and start experiencing certain feelings that you want to experience.
Right. Great. So,
Brilliant.
I remember yesterday someone asked, "Can you make someone forget a painful memory? Is it even possible?" So, I think the answer is so it's not that the memory bothers you, but the emotional content,
And the
right?
emotional content can be dealt with.
And using mindfulness here, we kind of tweaked the content, not the memory.
Correct. But in this case, the reason why we use mindfulness is because we are not really working with trauma and so on. If we were working with trauma, then probably I wouldn't have used mindfulness process. Then I would have used something else. Right. So there again, that's where the distinction come of understanding where to use what.
Perfect. Right. Makes sense. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so if we keep doing such series, then I'll have my life sorted. Probably, I'll keep playing demo for all of you. So that's a great side effect. So Nitin, I close my laptop for the activity. Do you see any questions or comments?
So there are actually. Let me just go through them one by one. So Supriya mentions that she has been to Vipassana and she has found it very similar to mindfulness.
Okay.
Bhavya is asking what's this process called. Bhavya, actually, I don't really know what is this process called because when I did my NLP programs, this was not covered in that program. While we spoke about becoming aware and submodalities to become aware of things, we really did not do this particular process. In the demo that I saw in a Bandler's video, the process was not this; it was slightly different. We kind of started experimenting with it because I had a client who had certain problems and everything else seemed to be taking too much of a time. So I thought, let's just see this can work, and that gave us an immediate result. And that's where we started using it more. Now we actually call it, what do we call it? We call it like the emotional physical connection, so mind body connection. But I think we still need to come up with a better name for that,
Right, and probably you guys can suggest one.
and probably you guys
Nitin,
can suggest one.
Nitin, if you and I are referring to the same video in the same process Bandler did, so I
Hmm.
also saw a video in which he, played with that movement of the physical feeling, and he tried to try to tell the person to do the opposite. So they had like a what should I say, a spinning motion in their abdomen or in their body. So he told the person to spin it, if it was clockwise, to spin it counterclockwise. Hey, what you did was much more brilliant, because you used what the happy memory was doing to um, what so to remove the emotional content of the,
So
which
that's
is
so that's
brilliant actually,
so
because
that's
I'm not doing anything that is unnatural. It's not your suggestion. It's not that you are telling me to do something. I'm able to do it, I guess, more easily, conveniently, effectively, because it's something my body is already doing in another context.
So that's true. At the same time, there's a context. So in the video that you're talking about, it's the same video that I was referring to.
Yes,
Bandler
yes.
was working with someone who was feeling intense anxiety. In
Right,
your case, because I could ask you to allow the sadness to settle down, and I could ask you to think about a happy memory, you were able to do that, right?
right,
But if a client comes in an extremely anxious state, there, even if I tell them to allow the anxiety to settle down and imagine a past calm experience, they may not be able to do it. So there, with them, what Bandler did was actually was smart, because you're saying, all right, so he's pacing and leading. He's saying that if clockwise is representing anxiety, let's see if we
right,
can change it in any ways to be able to change the context that you're feeling, right? And
right.
then
Got
it's
it.
not just about anti-clockwise to clockwise. You kind of play with it and you test the different sensations, the different directions that you could move the energy in, and the
Correct.
different experiences that you're having along with it. So there's a lot more that can be done with that.
Right.
So the context is different, but yes, the idea is the same.
Perfect. Perfect.
uh, Bhakti has asked, is it possible? No, sorry. Before that, Nidhi says, wow, finally I got a chance to apply a technique on myself. I hope you were able to do the process correctly, Nidhi, and that when you think of that sad memory again, the sadness is not coming up. That said, this is not a process to try with yourself when you are in an intense negative emotion again. Then let the
Yes.
therapist run it for you, because they there's a context. They know that they are able to control the situations if something goes for a toss. If what you're working with is like normal experiences where you feel sad but you are still not dysfunctional and you're able to handle that sadness and you want to change that emotional state, then this process is okay. Otherwise, for intense issues, let the therapist take care of it. Bhakti has asked, is it possible for personal to show his real feelings in trance mode? How long the trance mode can sustain? So, is it possible for a person to show real feeling? If the person wants to show it, yes. What, see, again, trance mode is not about making people do something that they don't want to do. It's about helping them do what they want to. So if a person comes and tells you, I don't know how I feel, I have not been in touch with my own feelings, and I would like to become aware of them, get in touch with them, understand them, then you can do all of that with hypnosis. I'm assuming you're saying hypnosis when you're talking about trance right now, because trance is again just one application of hypnosis. Uh, how long can a trance mode sustain? There's a school of thought that believes that we are constantly in a trance mode. It's just that we are using the trance mode sometimes in our advantage, in our favor, and sometimes in a way that works against us. So it's more about, can we make use of that trance state more effectively or not? But from a therapeutic point of view, as long as the session you're doing, I have done the longest session I've done is 4.5 5 hours, and the client maintained the trance state, that hypnotic state for 5 years. That there's only like one or two cases that I've done like that. And truly speaking, that was also because I was in a hostel. I was working with a friend of mine. We were both not sleepy, and we like really stretched it too much in terms of what all we wanted to do. But otherwise, with clients, you don't really need to go into more than what an hour is generally the average session that you will have.
Yeah.
Nidhi has asked, the sadness is gone. Can I try it myself on myself? I answer that, Nidhi, that if it's an intense issue, no. Otherwise, yes. Bubai says, cannot feel the sadness anymore. Brilliant. So now that that's worked for you. Minakshi says, great. Atri says, amazing technique. Supriya says, you're doing a great job, Mamta ma'am. Deepa, Deepa
The
is
great job was
amazing.
therapist. I was just following the instructions.
No, in fact, Mamta, actually, that's where the thing is that between a therapist and a client, it's actually both. It's the therapist's ability to help the client feel so comfortable that the client is able to follow the guidelines and the suggestions,
Correct.
and for the client to be able to be completely supportive and follow it. So it's correct what Supriya says. That great job for you too.
Thank you.
And then Supriya, Madhvi, and Kripa have all mentioned that they've really that the technique was good. So thank you everyone. With this, we are coming to the end of what was supposed to be last episode and now the second last episode. But please leave in on this particular video in the comments. Leave the topics that you want us to cover tomorrow in terms of clarity that you still don't have. I am going to do flip for sure, cord cutting for sure, because both of these processes have been asked for. Any other process that you want us to do, then write it down now so that we can do those processes tomorrow, and then we end the entire season.
Perfect.
And I
And
would
in cases
really,
of questions, if people have, you can bring it tomorrow, right?
correct, they can. And I would really like to thank all of you. This has been an amazing experience for us. Thank you for showing all your love and your support for this series and also for the Psych Talk series. I hope you have been enjoying that series as much. And there are more episodes that we are planning for that as well. So stay tuned for that. For those of you who would like to know more about what we do and how to connect with us, this is the website address. This is the email address. If any of you have tried to get in touch with me over email in the last couple of days, I'm sorry for not having responded to you from day after tomorrow morning. I would start taking care of all of that. Meanwhile, if there's anything emergency that you would like to talk to me about, then you can feel free to give me a call, and we can obviously speak over the call.
Perfect. And there was another series by the name of True Talks that happened before this. Those episodes are also available on YouTube, iChurch online channel, and you can share them widely because They were meant for everybody. They were not restricted to mental health professionals. So those can be shared widely with friends, family, even your clients. So you can go
So
check
I'm
them out.
also sharing the link to the Aicha's YouTube channel.
Yes.
I would recommend, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe.
Subscribe, and there are playlists there. So there is one playlist for the True Talks for Therapists that we are currently on. Then there'll be another one when we start posting Sci Talks. There's one for True Talks. Then there are loads of videos on, I think, everything psychology. So do go and watch and let us know any feedback, any comments, any questions that you have.
So, Mamta, there is a question where Supriya, can we do hypnodrama tomorrow? If tomorrow Mamta says there's a relationship issue that she wants to work with, we would do a demo for that. But that's the only way I can do a demo for that.
Hypnodrama. Okay, let me see if I can come up with somebody I need to resolve something with.
Correct.
Okay,
But please don't create a problem for the sake of demo. If you have one, then we would surely work with it. Otherwise,
of course, of course. All right then. So that's the end of the 21st episode. Thank you. Good night.
so thank you everyone. Good night. Take care. See you
Good night.
tomorrow.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.